Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 11th meeting of the Blackstone Millville Regional School District. I'd officially like to call this meeting to order and ask that you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll do an introduction of members. We'll start with Karen.
Karen Vernon, Millville.
And I'm Jane Reggio from Millville. Karen.
Erin Vanaco, Millville.
Carrie.
Carrie Gaudette, Blackstone.
Jack.
Jack Keefe, Blackstone.
Tara.
Tara Larkin, Millville.
Sarah.
Sarah Williams, Blackstone.
Tammy.
Tammy Lemieux, Blackstone.
Did I get everybody? I think I got everybody. Jason.
Jason DeFalco, Superintendent.
Matt.
Matt Aaronworth, Assistant Superintendent.
Jenny.
Jenny Chen-Rumka, Principal at the complex.
Jill.
Jill Pilla-Gallerani, Director of Learner Support Services.
Robert.
Robert McAnally, Athletic Director.
And Karen.
Karen Young, Newsleader.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. And we have a very special guest, but we will introduce him in a few minutes. We've got a little business first. You should have received in your email some warrants. And we also have the minutes of the January 14th meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve that as consent agenda A.
So moved.
Moved by Jack. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Second by Tammy. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. Jesse, I assume we don't have any public forum at this time.
We do not.
Okay, but I will let the public know that our March 11th meeting will be held in person. So I guess I'm letting you know this too, Jesse, but March 11th at 6 p.m. at the Hartnett Middle School. And that will also be our public forum for our budget for the FY22 fiscal year. So it will be, we will be moving back to in-person, starting with our next meeting. And at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Jenny, who will introduce a very special guest who's joined us today.
So we have Parker here today, and I met Parker before he even started school last year because his wonderful mom sent a letter to his classmates to introduce Parker. So I knew Parker from very beginning, and I told Parker a couple of weeks ago, I said, I have two heroes in my life. One of them is my grandmother who raised me. The other one is Parker, because when I look at Parker, a tiny little thing, but he overcame and still overcomes some of the obstacles he faces. And he is definitely the boss, I tell you. He will let you know he's in charge. And so every time Mrs. Rumka has a bad day, I would think about Parker. So what I did was, a few weeks ago, I wrote to the Tiny Superhero. It's an organization that have a squad that they send a cape. They select tiny hero. They send the cape to those tiny heroes. And Parker was selected. So I was very happy for him, and I couldn't wait to give him the cape. Parker, do you have your cape? You do? Can you show them the inside the cape?
I think he has his cape on. Oh my God.
Inside is like courage, all kinds of words that really represent Parker. But I don't want to talk too much because I think Mom should share his story. So look at that, right?
That's awesome.
So Vicki, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah, so Vicki, I'll pass it to you.
All right. So Parker was born with a rare genetic syndrome called Treacher-Collins syndrome, which was a surprise to both myself and my husband. He was born with a very small mandible. He was born with no ear canals, no cheekbones, and we call them little ears, but they're pretty much malformed ear nubs. So it's a craniofacial bone structure that's just wasn't developed. Everything else on Parker is completely normal, including his behavior, right? You act like a normal 7-year-old. He's had multiple surgeries in his life. The first one was at 2 months of age, where they did a mandibular jaw distraction to help him breathe. He has had dental, lots of dental, and more to come, right? Yeah. And he most recently had abutments placed. They're called bone anchoring hearing aids. We decided on that, which help him to hear really well, right? Yeah. And he decides how many he wants to wear. He has the option for 1 hearing aid or 2. He also has the option to change the color, and he does that pretty much every day.
Not really now.
Not really now, because you don't.
With his outfits.
You know, he likes to switch it up. He's been through a lot, but we take it day by day, sometimes hour by hour, and then sometimes minute by minute. But he honestly, I don't think any of his disabilities have ever really defined him. He doesn't even really get it yet. He still is a little unclear on why he got a cape, because it's just, this is life for us, and we make it happen. Right? Is there anything you want to say? What about a thank you?
Thank you.
Parker, can you tell them what's your favorite subject and what do you like to do? Because I do. I know you, but they don't.
Favorite subject is reading and art.
Ah.
He's a great reader.
Parker, who are your heroes? You're Jenny's hero, but who are your heroes?
My family.
I was going to say, your mom should be one of them.
They can see you.
And Dad, too. We can't forget Dad.
What about your brother?
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, he's big.
He said his family. He said the whole family. Yeah.
We have to bring Hunter to surgeries when we have surgeries, right? Because he needs to be there.
That's a courageous big brother then.
But you also have to thank all your teachers, because everyone from preschool at Millville, we've been joking because Parker's probably been in school longer than most. He started school at 6 months of age at the house, and then he went to Criterion, and then he went to Millville for 2 years. So wow. He's just a professional student. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for Parker?
I would love to just say to Parker's parents, thank you so much for sharing him with us. What a gift he is to have in our classrooms. So I visit the classrooms a lot, and Jenny and I were visiting one recently that actually first we went to Parker's, and then coincidentally enough, we then went and saw his brother. That wasn't done on purpose. Wait a minute, so I can tell you it's a pleasure to have both of your sons, but we're so grateful to have you share something so important and special with us. So thank you for that. And Parker, thank you for being the best version of yourself every day. You are such a gift.
And we thank you guys for watching after them, after both of them, actually. Mm-hmm. We need the school to really keep an eye on both of them. You know, it's been good. So we thank you for that. It's important to us.
We love your boys. They're great.
Yeah, Hunter's in the back. He's really excited.
he's running around to the back. I think he's trying to get the camera, but he doesn't dare. And there he goes.
Some air
He'll
time.
come by. Yeah.
Seems like he's looking for some air time.
The question was Hunter behaving in the classroom?
There we go.
I just wanted to say hi.
Hi, Hunter.
Hi.
I don't think Hunter knows anything but on how to behave. He's pretty, he's the ideal kid.
Yeah.
All right. Well, want to say thank you so much for everything? You did? I know, but you can say it again. It doesn't hurt.
To adapt.
Very different.
Can you say it in a different language? Let's say.
Oh, you
Adios.
can say it in a different day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't remember? It begins with an O. Say. Aubrey.
good.
That's in Portuguese. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Very cool. See? Look what you've learned.
Thank you for visiting.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thanks much. Have a great night,
Thank you for
everybody.
your time,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.
Have a nice vacation, boy.
Tiny heroes. We need 1 million of them.
That's right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.
Thank you.
Well, that was nice. Yeah.
Jenny, thanks so much for all your work on that.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate it.
Well, I thank you for the time. I think he needs to know how special he is. Yeah. Thank you. Have a good night.
Good
Thanks,
night, Jenny. Thank you. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Tammy to talk us through the OPEB policy and some other policy. And it doesn't matter which order you go in, Tammy.
Okay. So our first policy for the evening is the, actually I'll start with this one. The physical restraint prevention and behavior support policy. This policy is quite lengthy in its original form, and we were asked to change the policy by including, I'm trying to find it, I know it's highlighted for me.
It's like on the third page, the front of the page 3. Or page 5 if you.
Oh, yeah. And so section 5E indicates if any physical restraint lasts longer than 10 continuous minutes, or if multiple restraints occur that total longer than 10 minutes within a 30-minute period, BMR-SD staff member or agent should consider calling the community's mobile crisis unit. Any physical restraint lasting longer than 20 minutes must be approved by the principal or designee. And the sentence that's added is, approval shall be based upon the student's continued agitation during the restraint, justifying the need for continued restraint. So that is the section that's adding one sentence that is required per, I guess, regulations, Jill?
Department of Education. Yeah.
Department of Education, right? So.
Okay. So are you making the motion to amend the policy, whatever policy letters it is? It's probably on here somewhere. It's not on here. Well.
Yeah, so I'm making.
We'll call it the restraint policy.
I will find the letters as we speak, but yes, so I'm making the motion to amend the policy and forgo the reading of the entire policy by adding that one sentence to, again, section 5E.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tara. Okay, it's been moved to waive the reading of the entire policy so that we may amend section 5E of the physical restraint policy. Are there any questions or discussion? And Jill, I have a question, or maybe Jason. Do we have a community mobile crisis unit?
Yeah, so we have teams in each building, and all of our, I would call it more of a crisis team. They're all CPI trained. So in every building, we have identified those teams.
So it still would be school-based. We would never go out into the community.
So the policy is for school-based,
Right.
for crisis intervention, but just know that there are which we haven't, but there are students who beyond that you would call for mobile crisis. But this policy is for what we do within school with our crisis teams.
I have another question.
Yep, go ahead.
Is this for all students or is this special to like students with plans in place?
No, this is any students that need
general.
to be trained.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just confirming. Thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of amending the physical restraint policy, section 5E, by adding the sentence approval shall be based on the student's continued agitation during the restraint, justifying the need for continued restraint. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstention? All right, Tammy, you're on again.
Okay, so our second policy that we are visiting this evening is for OPEB, other post-employment benefits that we talk about so often. And so I would like to make a motion that the Blackstone Millville Regional School Committee vote to adopt and accept the provisions of Section 20 of Chapter 32B of the Massachusetts General Laws as amended by Section 15 of Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016, establishing an other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, to authorize the school committee and treasurer to execute a declaration of trust, creating an expendable trust for the purpose of holding monies appropriated to such fund, to designate the treasurer as the trustee of such trust, and to authorize the transfer of monies for the purpose of paying retiree health and life benefits to such trust, and to authorize the trustee to invest and reinvest the monies in such fund accordance with prudent investor rule established under Chapter 203C of the Massachusetts General Laws. And I would just like to, Matt worked with the folks to ensure that we were following sort of the provisions and regulations around creating an OPEB account. And so we also have, do I have to read this other thing?
No, you don't.
What do we talk about?
You can say as printed.
Okay. And so we also have, so I'll just leave that motion there.
Okay.
First.
So first, let's have a second to that.
Second.
Okay. Second by, well, lots of people, but we'll say Jack. So moved by Tammy, seconded by Jack. So this is to create the OPEB essentially account or ability to invest, I guess. Ability to set up a trust with the treasurer as the trustee. And then I think as Tammy was going to get to, there are investment policies in the way we will insure those investments and have to do the investments, which is quite a lengthy document. But it will be part of this policy if we choose first to create the plan. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the Blackstone Millville Regional School District provisions of Section 20, Chapter 328 of the Massachusetts General Laws, as amended by Section 15 of Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016, establishing an other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, to authorize the school committee and the treasurer to execute a declaration of trust, creating an expendable trust for the purpose of holding monies appropriated to such fund, to designate the treasurer of the trustee, to the treasurer as the trustee of such trust, to authorize the transfer of monies for the purpose of paying retiree health and life benefits to such trust, and to authorize the trustee to invest and reinvest the monies in such fund accordance with the prudent investor rule established under Chapter 203C of Mass General Laws. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, Tammy.
And so the Blackstone Millville Regional School District OPEB Liability Trust Investment Policy Statement is to provide a clear understanding between the district and Rockland Trust Company, who will be the investment manager, regarding the objectives, goals, risk tolerance, and investment guidelines established for the other post-employment benefits OPEB liability trust fund. So,
yeah. And so it gives you the scope, the introduction, the authority that we will invest in them, the strategy they need to use. That we understand our risks and how we wish for them to diversify and how we will measure performance. So that will be entered into the record and included in our minutes, but it will be as printed and distributed to each of you. So is there a second on Tammy's motion?
Second.
Second by Carrie. Any discussion? This is what Matt walked us through at our last meeting in terms of being able to create this fund and invest any funds that we would assign to it in a prudent manner. Okay. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the amendment as read and documented in front of you, say aye.
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 Any opposition? Any, whatever the other one is. All right, so moved. Abstentions, thank you. And we'll make sure that Monique gets a copy of it so she can publish it with the minutes, please. All right, at this time, I will turn the meeting over to Dr. DeFalco.
Thanks so much, Ms. Reggio. Nice to see everybody this evening. We have quite a few items under my report tonight, but we will try to move through them swiftly. First up, Karen, I think Karen's still on. I'm going to ask Karen Young, there she is, the nurse, who's a little under the weather after getting her second COVID vaccine. There we are, perfect timing, to give us an update this evening on our COVID response plan. Karen, thanks so much for weathering the storm and hanging in there with us, and we'll keep you very light tonight. We won't keep you long, don't worry. But thank you so much for being here.
Of course, thank you. So the numbers at the school, we've seen over 1,200 in the various health offices. Overall, the numbers were highest between mid-November through mid-January, following Thanksgiving and Christmas, New Year's. At one point, we were up to seeing 10 positive cases a week. We are currently down to 2 to 3 a week. We've had 71 total cases, but only 2 active cases. So I'm happy with that, and we'll take what we get because I'm a bit concerned about March, but we'll deal with that when it comes. There have, like I said, been less students and staff testing positive and less students that have been close contacts from other sources. I'll just speak for a minute on the vaccines. As of right now, educators are still in phase 2, group 3. There was a little bit of I thought, a confusing message that was in the commissioner's report this week. that said educators were prioritized behind healthcare and first responders, which they are, but they're third in phase 2. The MTA is meeting with DPH to try and prioritize high-risk districts to start getting people vaccinated. But at this point, DPH is saying it will be, quote, a few weeks. So we're looking at the March to April timeframe. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Karen.
We appreciate it again. We appreciate you being here. Thanks.
I feel better.
Thank you. Yeah, the second dose kind of knocked me for a little bit of a loop, but I'm very happy to have that.
I agree with you. I think the sooner we can get everybody in, the sooner we can get everybody back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. Get some rest.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to get an update from our athletic director. And Robert, I know on the agenda it says winter sports, but it's in fact fall 2. I just didn't want to post fall 2 on the agenda. I thought people might get confused about what that is. So, because technically it's still winter. So we're going to hear a bit about football, cheerleading, indoor track. That's going to be outdoor. And
only one.
I know, in one meet, I think. But let me just bear with me a second. I'm going to share my screen. Jesse, if you would be so kind and make me a co-host, please. And I will pull up the PowerPoint that is in your packet so that the public can see it. And Robert can walk us through. So just give me a minute here.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to thank everybody on the school committee too for letting the kids play during the winter season. Basketball did a great job. There's only one team that went to quarantine early on in the season, but they did a great job staying healthy throughout the season.
Robert, you let me know when you're ready to shift. I can't see anybody with this PowerPoint up, so just tell me when you're ready to roll, okay?
Yep, I'm good to go.
All right, perfect.
All right, so right here you'll see it's kind of the same format as I've done the other 2 presentations. And basically this is the sports that we're going to be offering. Football will be starting right after February break. We're going to try to start them off slowly. It's going to be a little bit tough with the foot of snow that's probably still on the fields and stuff like that. We're going to try to work on getting rid of that. Fortunately, they just approved that football can practice indoors following certain safety protocols. So I've been in communication with our head coach, Josh Ugolo, about how we can implement all these safety procedures and modifications so that we can do stuff the right way, along with the other coaches, such as fall cheerleading and volleyball, indoor track. Fall cheerleading and volleyball will start the first week of March, and indoor track will start mid-March. It's going to look different, just like all the other seasons. Football is going to have a max of 5 games. Hopefully everybody can stay safe and healthy and we can have all those 5 games. Cheerleaders this year will only be allowed to attend home games. Volleyball, it's undecided, but it should be similar to basketball, and indoor track will have 1 meet. And that will take place outside at our facility. Right now our pods are undecided and our opponents are undetermined at this time. However, it will most likely look like basketball season. Football will probably be a little bit different based on competitive levels and matching us up with schools that have turf fields so that they have a safer play surface. And now pretty much following the same guidelines. Each link has the MIA website has the modification and guidelines just as they did with the winter season and fall season. Like I said, I reviewed this with the coaches. We'll review with parents and families that decide to participate in those sports before the season occurs. And practices are going to be shortened just like they were in the other 2 sports. Football may have a little bit longer practices, but it won't be as long as the traditional practices. All players and coaches, just like in any other sport, will have to wear their mask at all times. We're going to stock the medical kits with PPE equipment and making sure that they have face masks, extra wipes, hand sanitizers to stay safe while they're participating. Same thing with face mask gaiters. Each sport has different regulations, but pretty much the same, that it has to follow the school standards. All students must provide their own water bottle. Nothing's changed with that. And no building will be accessed, such as the locker rooms, weight rooms, and training rooms. They'll all still be closed. And so far right now, we know that spectators for indoor sports like volleyball will not be allowed. However, we're going to use NFHS network to stream the volleyball games, which it's been working pretty well with basketball. Our first boys varsity game actually had over 600 viewers that watched the live stream of the game. So that's something that it's great for the school and our community, that we're able to still watch our young student athletes while they participate in their sports. Football, cheerleading, and indoor track still undecided at this time based on numbers and stuff like that. But looking into streaming just like we did with the other sports, so that even if we are allowed to have fans, we're not going to be able to have a packed house. So we're going to want to make sure that everybody can still watch our kids participate in their chosen sports. And so I've already opened up registration on Family ID. I'm going to try to keep it open up till March 1st, maybe extend it a little bit longer, depending on how it looks for signups. Same requirements are still in place. The physical exams within the last 13 months need to be handed into the nurse or myself. Concussion tests will be taken, and then following the same opioid awareness packet, all the stuff they have to read through when you're registering the kids, that will be need to be signed off and acknowledged before participating, just in any traditional year. So it's going off the same thing, concussion awareness. They're going to have to take a course if they haven't already done so in the last 2 seasons. Sports fees, such as the other 2 sports, have been reduced. Football is 150. Fall cheerleading is 100. If we have spring sports, that fall cheerleading fee will be applied to the spring season. Indoor track and field will be $100, and volleyball will also be the $100. And just as the last payments, you can hand it into your assistant principal in your designated building or pay online with that link. So our expectations still remain the same for coaches, players, and fans to have positive leadership, to follow the fan conduct, help our coaches and our staff stay positive and keep the experience positive for our players, encourage good sportsmanship and a positive behavior, addressing parents' concerns. Let's communicate that after things cool down. This is an important thing. The bona fide team rule with other sports, maybe starting off AU and other sports. It's important that our school comes first when it, even whether it was be a practice or a game, that when you sign up to be a BMR student athlete, that you're committed and that our school comes first. That's what the bona fide rule stands for. Also, the chemical health and social media awareness, that we got to do the right things and keep ourselves healthy by not using drugs, alcohol, or any other illegal substances. And be smart with social media, doing the right thing, and only posting positive stuff. And traveling will be the same with buses, unless approved otherwise through myself. And that would have to be at least 24-hour notification to me saying that you're going to commute, that you're going to transport your child to and from games. And then what can parents do? They can be a positive role model and embrace the change. Be patient and supportive. Be an ambassador for our school and the town. Be a healthcare worker, meaning checking the temperatures regularly, making sure that you're doing the right things at home, following the EEA guidelines, and staying home if you're not feeling good. We had a couple players that did the right things during basketball seasons. They had like cold symptoms, so they stayed home for a couple of days, got tested, and they were able to come back when they tested negative, which helped out our team stay on the field. So it's very important that we follow those guidelines and these safety precautions, and become a team booster members. I know football has a big booster club, and the other teams would love to have any parents that want to be involved and part of their booster clubs. So this last slide is kind of like the important stuff, the stuff that's different from the other seasons. Indoor track and field will be shortened from March 15th to April 23rd with only one meet. A big part of that is that we couldn't use indoor facilities just because the number of indoor facilities in Central Mass are limited. And also the guidelines at the time wouldn't allow us to practice indoors. So that might be a little bit looser towards the end, but we're still going to have that meet outside, which is unfortunate, but at least we'll be able to host one before the outdoor season happens. Football will be allowed to practice indoor. This recently changed this week, only following the new guidelines when necessary. So they're not going to be practicing indoor every day. And we'll just take it day by day. A lot of safety precautions are still coming out and guidelines are being updated. That was the most recent one. Projected start of the season for football will be March 19th. This will be a 6-week season with us only scheduled for 5 games. 1 week will be a bye week. Probably see a lot of schedule changes or maybe opponent changes based on other teams. It's kind of like we did with basketball. We have to stay on top of stuff and be flexible this year. Cheerleading will only be allowed at the home games, as I mentioned earlier. I'm looking into alternative locations to hold some games and practices just because the snow and fields aren't going to be at the best condition for athletes. Nearby schools with turf fields, I have asked and just waiting for their approval to use their fields. Hopefully we can work out something with them, whether it be a couple of days or multiple days to practice on bare field conditions. Volleyball will look very similar to basketball, hoping that the pods stay the same, which is a high possibility, just hasn't been confirmed yet. Volleyball will not be allowed fans, and as mentioned earlier, the games will be streamed live on the NFHS network, and they'll also be available on demand. And then we'll be looking to stream the other athletic competitions as well, just so that everybody can view our young student athletes.
Thanks, Robert.
Yep.
You're muted, Jane.
If anybody has any questions or anything, I can try to address them.
Yeah, can you speak to the indoor football practice guidelines? Like, what is that going to look like?
So it's going to be mainly conditioning. They won't be able to do contact drills or anything like that. It's going to probably be like a lot of running and stuff like that. It's probably going to look similar to maybe even basketball practice. We won't have the whole gym packed. There's only so many plays that we can have on the playing surface. So we'll just probably rotate and it'll look like a kind of like a conditioning workout practice.
So the football, are you looking to play the games on turf fields?
Yes, and
so how does that give the cheerleaders a chance to cheer?
So hopefully towards the end of the season, it'll work out that they can share. But it also determines if use a nearby school and that's our home field, then they'll be able to go to those games even though it's in another town.
Okay.
So as long as it's our home game that we're represented, they'll be able to attend. Yeah.
I guess I have a question on indoor track and field. So football is allowed to practice indoors, but track and field can't have an indoor meet. Like, I know this isn't you. This is a bigger issue than us, that football seems to have special rules in a lot of this, and we're smushing out that the end of the year season, which missed out last season, so that we can basically squeeze in football. But so track, I feel very uncomfortable asking track parents to pay $100 for one meet I mean, I just, like, why would we do that?
I can understand that.
And why
That's-
is it only one meet? I mean, you're going to practice from March 15th to April 23rd for basically one game.
Yeah.
If the committee wants to make a change on that, that's not our decision. We left just so the committee knows, we left the sports user fees that we've been using all year on there.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a question for all of us. I mean, I happen to be a track parent, not an indoor track parent, but I mean, I think $100, I mean, it's basically one game.
Yeah. I can understand that.
I mean, I think what you're
I
doing
can't
is
even believe that MIAA approved this as a package for the indoor people. Like, that's ridiculous to me.
But what's tough is that in Central Mass, there's only one major facility close to us, and that's Northbridge Fieldhouse. And there's might be a couple other that are in Central Mass that we would be able to utilize. But with the regulations is that we can't have multiple schools like traditionally you would have at one of these indoor events. And that limits their capacity to host us and all puts a lot of strains on them. And some of them won't allow it because they're their guidelines and their school policies. So that's the position that we're in with that. But
mean,
I agree that the fee for one basically game would be difficult to justify, and if it makes more sense to kind of lump it with outdoor track, then that.
I mean, I think that's what they should have done.
It does to me.
If you're going to practice football on these fields anyway, why wouldn't they have just extended the outdoor track season for the extra month and made it more reasonable for these athletes?
So that's basically, so unofficially, that's basically what it is. They just want to call it indoor track so that
exactly
the kids indoor track won't say that they didn't have a season. They just want the season, I guess. I can't.
Well, I would make a motion if that's appropriate
I'll certainly entertain a motion.
Get rid of the sports fee for indoor track for sure.
Well, yeah, or combine indoor and outdoor as one fee. So if you pay it for indoor, you don't have to pay it for outdoor. If you didn't pay it for indoor, you have to pay it for outdoor. So
sure,
merge it into
however we want to do it, but
yeah,
that just seems unfair.
Aaron?
I'm just curious why there is only one meet.
Because there's no indoor places to have any others.
Was that
I thought it was
an MIA? But they said they're holding it outside.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
If it's an outdoor meet, it's going to be held outdoors. Why wouldn't we just have like the first 3 weeks of April have a meet every week? Or is that decided by someone else, or is that decided by us?
It's not decided by me. Let's put it that way. I agree with that, but it wasn't decided by me. And one of the other things is outdoor facilities and what's going to be our pod is the other issue where us, I think Douglas and another school are the only ones that have an outdoor facility. So I mean,
Whitensville wasn't in our pod.
What's that?
Was Whitensville in our pod for basketball? Because they have a fantastic facility.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe it was that. Maybe I got one of the schools wrong. I know they said that there was only 3 or 4, so maybe they're the other ones.
So is it a minimum of one meet, or it's only one meet?
From what they said, is one meet. I don't know if that's going to change. It might change if more than what voice up their concerns, and parents like yourself and the school committees voice their concerns and address the matter. I'll bring it up to them for sure during the next meeting. I kind of agree. We'll have to see how the weather goes, but logistically, we should be able to have at least three, probably in April.
Robert, who is our track coach? I think we lost my favorite track coach ever.
So I'm waiting. I don't want to officially say something until they're appointed.
We don't have a track coach is with the answer.
I have somebody in mind that I'm going to recommend tomorrow. I just don't want to say it before they're actually appointed.
Okay.
Okay, well, there is a motion on the floor. So does anybody want to second Tammy's motion that I amended with my amendment?
Second.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So the motion is that a family only has to pay track athletic fee. So that if they participate in indoor, they don't have to pay for outdoor. If they don't participate in indoor, they play outdoor, but it's just one track and field fee for this academic year. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstention? Okay, thank you.
And Robert, may I ask a question? Do we have, are we part of a co-op for swim? A parent asked that today.
Yeah, I received the email. I'm gonna look into it. I'm
Okay.
not aware of any, but I believe I know
It
a
was
couple
with
schools that
Northbridge.
Northbridge.
It was at Northbridge's pool.
All right, I'll check in.
No,
with,
at Whitensville Community Center or whatever that's called.
Oh, but isn't that in Northbridge? The Witten Community Center?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's in Northbridge though.
all right, I'm gonna check.
It was like, yeah, it was like a co-op of like 42 schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
I remember
mostly
them
to-
talking about during winter.
It was mostly
so-
allowed to get them to swim to get times for the state meet, those that had regular swimmers.
Yeah, so it's a winter sport, so it already passed, but I'll definitely check into that for next season.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else for Robert? Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Robert. We appreciate the update and all the hard work it's taking this year to get the.
May I just ask one clarifying question? When we talked about that they have to wear face masks, it says /gaiters on here, but we don't allow gaiters in the district. Are they allowed for sports?
We allow gators.
Oh, we allow
they have to be
gators? I'm
double
sorry, I
layered.
thought we didn't allow gators. Sorry.
Gators.
They have to
I
be
think it
double
might be
layered. So it just can't be
Cumberland
like one of
thing.
those thin ones. It has to be double layered.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting my school districts confused.
But the majority of our athletes anyways use a traditional face mask. They don't. I haven't seen one of our students use a gaiter yet.
All right.
Thank you.
Robert, thanks again. We appreciate it. All the good work. Moving forward to our next item, it is time for my mid-cycle evaluation report. And so just want to give Erin a big thank you for helping me work through this process and putting together the document that we have this evening. And I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of process through each of the goals, and I can give a bit of an update in terms of where things are. And so just give me 1 minute. And just again, as this is coming up, when I share my screen, I can't see anybody. So if anybody has a question as I'm moving, just throw it out there because I won't be able to see you as we move forward through our conversation and discuss the progress that we're making towards the third year of our implementation of our district improvement strategy. As the committee knows, we have stayed really focused on our purpose and fulfilling the district blueprint and ensuring that we are keeping in the forward direction, frontward facing our work with curriculum instruction, the whole child, and our work with the community. And this evening, you're going to see something a little bit different, and you probably noticed in your packet, you did not get a binder tonight of evidence. You can thank Erin for that.
Thank you, Erin.
It makes very good sense. The binder is coming, though. The binder is coming for the end of cycle evaluation or end of year evaluation. I will put together a very comprehensive portfolio that will have everything for the year. Just so that the committee members don't have to kind of toggle back and forth through emails and trying to find the specific pieces of evidence that I'm referring to in our evaluation discussion. But for the mid-cycle evaluation, you probably noticed that what you received in your packet, in addition to the PowerPoint, is just the new evidence, or the evidence that the committee may not have seen before. I also want to note that I took very much to heart the feedback from last year, and you'll see that there's not a lot of agendas and schedules and those kinds of things in here. I think what I was working toward last year was really showing the committee how we execute the work and use the systems and structures and time and organizational components to get the work done. What I am trying to do is really showing impact. And, again, that's an area that I struggle with sometimes in regards to, what's the best way to show the impact of some of this work. So I hope the committee sees that I tried something a little bit different with the evidence provided for the MidCycle. But again, this work is very much anchored into fulfilling our purpose and really leaning into that as we've moved through this very unusual school year, we shall say. So I certainly won't belabor the 4 focus standards, but you will notice on each of my evidence slides that I did outline the actual standard and the element that the evidence is connected to. And again, that just, for helpful purposes in terms of seeing from, my perspective, how I'm kind of connecting the work to each one of these areas that the school committee has approved and asked me to focus on for the school year. So as we move forward through each of the goals and each of the pieces of evidence, you will see highlighted the elements, the standards and elements there. So I'm certainly not going to sit and read the goals out loud, but we know that the goal for professional practice this year for me is to help us really navigate the pandemic. And do the best we can in terms of ensuring the health and safety of our students and staff and operating our school system to the fullest capacity regarding teaching, learning, extracurricular athletics programs, et cetera, that we possibly can. And I think it's important to note here that this is a huge collaborative effort. From obviously starting with the school committee and myself, the leadership team, the boards of health, but various other groups that are very much plugged into helping not just Blackstone Millville, but other school systems, frankly, do the best that we can do to keep our schools open and safe. And so for our MidCycle, I've listed a series of points that I would like to just share with the committee and the community around evidence of this work in action. And I'm not going to read all of these to folks, but I do think it's important to highlight a couple of things. One is our first bullet, which is our kind of ranking, if you will, or placement in terms of structured learning time and how we've been able to really maximize that. The other is the adjustment to learning plans. I know it has been incredibly frustrating as we've had to shift and kind of mold what we've been doing, whether it's been, taking a class and making a class full remote or a grade level full remote, as we had to do recently with kindergarten, or the whole school system full remote, or leaving the high school in full remote for an extra week, or swapping an early release day. This level of adjustment is incredibly frustrating for folks that really need that consistent routine each and every day, day in, day out. I will say that we have tried as hard as we can to stick to that, but it has been a challenge, and we've had to adjust to make sure that we're able to keep our classrooms staffed and folks safe. The other piece I want to highlight, the last check-in on our remote meal service, this was the beginning of February, are just under 300,000 meals served to our families. And so, again, I can't say enough about the work of our food service department. And I'm just really pleased that we've been able to continue to care for the needs of our families as we've moved through this. These are the numbers since March, 362. And those change every week. Clearly, they continue to grow. Lastly, this actually might seem a little out of place, but I will explain why it is referenced here. But I don't want it to get lost that in the midst of all of this, we successfully completed the work with our regional agreement. And that is something that was a tremendous effort on the behalf of so many individuals that I didn't want it to get lost in this. And I referenced it here because, frankly, as you know, to get our schools open, we had to move the kindergarten. And we moved it under that emergency provision language in our old regional agreement, our prior regional agreement. But frankly, it was a good test run to see how things would work. So I did want to make sure that we captured that here, because that was an incredibly challenging process for everybody and a very heavy lift. So big shout out to everyone that helped get that done and across the finish line.
And Jason, I'm just going to add here, if you don't mind,
Please.
that I pointed out to you when we met last week that the regional agreement could really fall into all of your focus standards. I just want to point that out. It could fall into instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, as well as professional culture. So I just want to make sure that the committee feels that and sees, the impact that has on the work being done.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Erin. I appreciate the clarification because it does touch every corner of the work for sure. So thank you for clarifying and for sharing that. So next on to teaching and learning. Again, I certainly won't review the goals with folks. I know that everybody's very familiar with our literacy goal, our math goal, and then of course, executing a very strong instructional framework across all of our schools. This is always the other work is so important and necessary and critical in moving the system forward. But I always look at our other goals and think about, we need to make sure that that work is supporting this work, because this is the work that's actually going to change outcomes for kids as far as teaching and learning goes. And that, of course, is the work that we are about. So you will see that the bulk of the new evidence that was submitted in your packet is listed here in this particular goal. And I do want to just take a quick minute and walk through these, only because a lot of the docs are ones that you hadn't seen before. And so we, as you know, are implementing very boldly and strongly our new literacy programs, pre-K to 12. And so you will see evidence of that work in some of those trainings in your packet. We also do, as you know, my school visits, regular school visits, and the principals and I visit classrooms specifically to look at the implementation of our literacy program. It is really funny, I have to say. So this year, we've done full in-person visits where we've seen, full in-person instruction, where we have seen hybrid instruction. I have done virtual visits. This is really kind of strange, but kind of funny, where the principal and I get the Google link. I'm in my office, the principal's in their office, and we jump into the Google Classrooms. And I have been a floating head on a laptop where a principal has given me a Google link. I jump on the link and they walk me around the building. When we're in times of trying to be really creative about not, we have our little notepads where we keep our close contact list, and we're all trying to have tried to avoid that during certain times to keep things open. We've just found different ways of doing the work. So the poor kids that have seen me peering over their shoulder on a computer screen to look at what they're writing, I probably scare the heck out of them. But it's really been great. And we particularly have gone this year with a lot of our learning walks looking at our literacy program implementation. And alongside of that, we have our principal professional learning community meetings where it's myself and the principals, and we rotate schools. So we all, each principal hosts a visit. They have their instructional focus area, usually around critical thinking, and we'll go into a classroom and look at the instruction and give the principal feedback on how they can help move that classroom forward. So often we are looking through the lens of literacy. Sometimes not the case. We're looking at a particular instructional practice or two, but that has been really great. The other piece to draw to your attention is the curriculum work around math. What I have in your packet this evening is essentially a draft statement of our instructional vision for mathematics. Before we delve into any work in terms of reviewing our curriculum or thinking about and looking at research at where we should go next, we always start with crafting the vision. If you look on our teaching and learning webpage on our district website, you'll see that English language arts and literacy instructional vision posted. That was the first thing the committee did. And that is such a critical piece because we want to make sure that everything we're doing with our curriculum will anchor back to our work with our instructional vision. So that draft is in your packet. And it's also gone out to all the teachers, all the administrators. And that's really important because we want to make sure that our entire school community is plugged into that. I think the final piece I just want to highlight on that work that is really critical in moving our curriculum work forward is looking at what the shifts are that need to be in place for both teachers and students. So there's this idea of, well, if we are at point A with teaching and learning around mathematics, we're trying to get to point D, what's the strategy in which we need to take to kind of build that bridge and to get where it is we're trying to go. So a really big shout out to our math committee, of which I have a list of our math committee members in your packet. They have done some incredible work. Also, I wanted to share, to give you a little bit of a taste of the work that the math committee is doing. And we're going to have the math committee meet with the school committee soon in the next few months and give a full update on their really great work. But we wanted to share with you a little bit about some of the professional development that they're getting as well while they're working through this process. So the school committee and the community has a very deep sense of how we're moving forward with our math curriculum work. The next piece is more instructionally focused. So you probably saw an update from Focus Schools. I actually had a lengthy conversation with Carrie and put together for the committee an update on the work that she is doing with our principals, with our instructional leadership teams, with our coaches. I'm always kind of awestruck when I see, particularly at this time, the depth of work that's going on in our school system. I'm very proud of our school-based instructional leadership teams, of our instructional coaches, our planning, teaching, learning coaches, our principals, and Carrie. They have done just an incredible job of keeping, as Carrie will say, keep the main thing the main thing. And regardless of a pandemic, the work's moving forward. Carrie's kind of funny. She said to me, don't take this the wrong way, but there's always going to be a COVID. She said it clearly won't be COVID.
Great, thanks, Carrie.
But she was saying her point was there's always going to be a distraction. And we can let our work with teaching and learning get sidetracked if we allow it to. And so, the idea is really adaptation and how do we keep pushing the work forward. So you have a full update in your packet around just how that work is progressing in each one of our buildings. Our implementation of our school improvement plans, that was a really important piece for us. And you noticed that is referenced throughout the Focus Schools update. And the last two pieces, I would argue, are some of the most important. These are our data meetings. And I think the committee might remember last year, my end of year evaluation, I had shared how I was disappointed that we couldn't get the data cycles in place that we wanted to, that we kind of got derailed by this. I will tell you, we hit this area incredibly hard this year and have started in the fall with our first data cycles, looking at our student performance, which we're going to see in a few minutes, talking about specific gaps in learning for kids, gaps in curriculum and programs, gaps in instructional practices, filling those gaps with action plans, both at the kind of the aggregate or grade level through our teacher professional learning community times, but also with special education. Jill and Jenica, our special education coach, met with our teachers and they went through just the students with special needs data and developed very targeted and tight action plans. Now, what happens in between, right, the beginning, middle, and end of year assessment and I'm really proud of our coaches and our teachers, and I'll share a high school story in a quick second, but these data cycles have started. And what teachers are doing now is bringing authentic student work to these data meetings, and they're using protocols to look at them to talk about what's working, what's not, and what's next, particularly anchored to the goals and those action plans that have been set. New this year, Matt, Jill, and I meet collaboratively as a team with each school-based team to talk about how our central services can help support driving the work forward in the classrooms. So I just listed the dates that we had our first round of data meetings, and then we have our next round coming up in a couple of weeks. This is a hugely important piece of the work. On my way in this morning, I got a text message from Carrie very early. Actually, Mike was on it as well, and Jeff. Jeff and Carol Conti modeled yesterday the SLICE protocol for all of the high school staff. And Carrie said she wants to use that video in the districts that she works with across the country, because frankly, the way the protocol was executed was done so well. She also had Jenny sharing at a national leadership conference just this week as well. And Jenny was sharing specifically the work that she's doing at the complex around data and some of the shifts she's had to make in her leadership to get this work in place. Carrie, again, had shared that she's going to be using that work that Jenny did with a small group of principals from Connecticut to California and everywhere in between across the other systems that weren't there. Because the work that's happening in BMR is really getting traction. So big shout out to our staff. They are doing this in a time that most people said, let's ditch it and let's just kind of do COVID and get through the year. We have not subscribed to that. So a big thank you and a big shout out to our team on that. Another area that we've made significant progress in is in equity. We have done a tremendous amount of work in this area. And I was sharing with Erin in our meeting last week as we were kind of walking through this together. And again, Erin, a big thank you for your help with this. I really struggle on how to measure this particular goal. I don't really know how to show impact. I can show what we're doing. I can talk about it at length. It is certainly something that is very important and on the minds of many. But I'm not sure how to measure the impact yet. But I do want to highlight just a couple of key pieces of evidence here that I think are really important, mainly the bottom two. We, as you know, I was selected to represent the Worcester County School Superintendent Group and sit on the state board that meets monthly to talk about what are the right tools that we need to put in place to help school systems across the Commonwealth become exemplary anti-racist organizations. I will tell you, it is incredibly hard work, and we wrestle a lot with, kind of the how and the what that should be part of this. But it's been an honor and privilege to serve in that capacity. And so while there's a lot of work happening at the state level, I am more proud of the work that's happening in our school system. Our Chargers for Change group have met over 15 times since the start of the school year. They are such a resilient and dedicated group of young leaders at our high school. Just today, as a matter of fact, I hope some of you had a chance to tune in or heard, but we had a guest speaker who spoke. It was just quite remarkable, who captured essentially the migrant journey from Latin America to the United States. And he captured that whole journey in photos. And he met with our kids today, and he shared his photos and he shared his story. It was unbelievable. As a matter of fact, he shared so much information with the kids about not just this kind of, the journey that, the migrant journey that our immigrants from Central America take, but talked a lot about, he's a young man, so we talked a lot about college, and he really spoke to the seniors about, kind of how to help them navigate into the next phase of their work. It was incredible. We had a training recently called Elephants and Onions, and that was the whole concept of that was, let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? Which is this kind of diversity, equity, inclusion work. And we realize how complicated it is, and you start peeling layers of the onion, right? You kind of start peeling more and more, and you see how deeply connected and challenging the issues are. From here, we're launching into work with the Anti-Defamation League around No Place for Hate. And we are hoping that the high school will become a certified no place for hate building with the work and training that we're doing in that area. So this is something that I could talk about for quite some time, but I do want to highlight the work of the students. I have met with the Chargers for Change group and have had a chance to give them an update. I put a little PowerPoint together for them. I know I sent it to the school committee in a weekly update, but I've had a chance to update them on the work that's happening at the district level and with the school committee. And I will tell you, they are incredibly moved by the level of support that they have from the adults in our school system. And the fact that they feel very heard and very listened to. So thank you to the school committee for joining us on this journey with this work. And there's a lot more work to come in this area. Fiscal management really was kind of twofold, right? We know that we're navigating the FY22 process, and we have an update on that later in the agenda. But we also know that we're navigating the COVID time agenda and budget, so to speak, in terms of how do we keep the system up, running, safe, and continuing to increase opportunities for teachers and students during the year. And so I know Matt will have an update shortly, but this has been a tremendous focus of our work as we've continued to navigate how do we fund the plan we have in place, because that has also been a very heavy lift. In addition to that, we'll also be hearing later on a little bit about some of the grant opportunities and what that's going to look like moving forward for our FY22 budget. So a lot more information to come on this. I know that this is all very fresh because we're working on it now and we get regular updates. So I didn't provide a lot of evidence in this area. Frankly, I know the committee already has the bulk of it. And last, but certainly not least, all things lead to this point, our student learning goal. And I know the committee has heard quite a bit about the need for ensuring that this piece, our fiscal management side of the house, supports directly this piece, which is our student learning goal. Before I get into the data, I want to share, the committee probably remembers when we did the MidCycle report. I did my MidCycle report last year. It was actually early to mid-March. Right. We did this a month later. I wanted to do it earlier because I felt that A, the updates are just critically important. But B, because of the way my learning goal is set up this year for the school district, we don't need the MCAS data to finish the evaluation. So if you remember, we kind of backed up the cycle this year. So I wanted to do the MidCycle a little early. I share all that only to state that some of the evidence you probably saw underneath the student learning reports, you'll see, X% of the kids participated. We had a couple of grades in a couple of areas that, frankly, they just weren't done testing yet. Or because of the high school schedule being on a block schedule, which runs by semester, all of the students weren't taking English or math, frankly. So I'll talk that through, and you can certainly ask whatever questions you might be wondering about as we move through that. But these are our growth percentiles. Again, 50 is the target. So you can see, if you look at 7th grade, this was one where the kids just weren't quite finished testing yet. We had 107 out of 133, so we were almost there, but wanted to note that we were missing a few students from that. So the student growth is okay, but I want to remind folks it's a nationally normed assessment. So we're put in the same bucket with all kids across the country that took this year, beginning to middle of year. So I state that to say these numbers can look, better when everyone's struggling. I hope that makes sense because it's nationally normed and it adjusts year to year based on the students and where they're taking it and how they compare to their cohort. I want us to proceed with caution with growth this year. So this gives you a little bit of a sense of where we are. 50 is the average. We have a couple of standouts. 2nd grade has a strong SGP, and 3rd grade is on the higher end. Again, 40 to 60s, that zone you want to be in. But again, you can see the rest either fall a little short or just are at the 50 percentile marker. That's English. And then here's math. Again, not a hugely different story, except you can see our outliers. Again, grade 2, this time in 8th grade as well. If you look at 9th grade, this is a perfect example, 42 out of the 100 kids tested. That's because of the block schedule. And so it's just important to keep in mind how that worked. You'll see first our students with special needs, our special education data. Jill is working very hard with Jenica and the teachers on this because we are delving into the amount of time. As you can imagine, we have students testing all over the place, which has been another challenge with this data, but are really peeling back the hood to see. We have some cases where certain students, unfortunately, took 9 minutes on the test. So they're going back to retest in those situations. But you can see from our beginning to middle of year meeting and exceeding numbers. 2nd grade was again a bit of a standout. Grade 3 made some progress here, but you can see the rest is either flat or went backwards. So you can see that there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. This is special education, ELA, partially meeting or not meeting. And again, you can see the not meeting column, obviously is where at least my eyes tend to go to right away, but you can see we have a significant number of students just still in that not meeting category. I want to mention though, that again, our special education department and staff have done a really solid job of trying to get all of those students in. Students with significant special needs in 5 days a week. Some are coming 4. And then students that are on individual education plans that are in need of quite a bit of extra support, but are in that inclusion setting. We've tried like heck to get those students back in and have done so in most cases. And unfortunately, we have some situations where families wanted to keep their kids full remote. So we're doing our best to provide services remotely for those families. So these numbers are not showing a lot of optimism, but it is not because of a lack of effort for sure. There's just a lot of additional challenges this year that we're going to continue to work through. No excuses. We have our action plans, and Jill and Jenica, our instructional coach, are right on top of those with our teachers. Then we have mathematics. Again, math is a bit of a bleaker picture in terms of the results and causing significant concern. We talked about this when we went through the first round of our budget process, I think in December, when we had some early indicators that we were in trouble with math because it's not the same as literacy. Kids aren't picking up a math book and practicing at home as they would pick up a book and read. So we know we're going to have some major gaps here. And then again, a similar story, if you look all the way to the right with the percentage of kids not meeting. We have significant issues here and a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of identifying exactly the specific skills that need to be addressed in the how. I know that our instructional coach is working very closely with teachers through their professional learning time meetings and coaching teachers one-on-one to help implement those action plans. Jill also, just so folks are aware, meets one-on-one with the teaching staff to go through their results and talk about how to, mitigate some of these learning gaps and learning loss. Here's the aggregate. So these are all students together. And again, you can see from beginning year to middle of year, we have a couple of outliers on both ends. You can see on grade 2, we made a nice jump. Grade 3, we made a nice jump. Grade 7, we went the other direction. Grade 9, you've got to take a little bit with a grain of salt because of the number of kids that were actually tested. So they had some issues with their beginning of year testing, getting all of the kids tested of those that were enrolled in a course, their freshman English course. You can tell there were some struggles because of the few numbers that took the exam versus the middle of the year. We had more students take the test and they did better. It was a wider sample, but we still were not able to capture all the students that took it, because frankly, at the time we ran the data, there was still a week for students to be able to finish. So the high school data is, at least for that freshman, is a bit different. The other thing to keep in mind is the students only had, and the teachers only had, from September till January, the end of January, before they shifted courses because of the block schedule. So not an excuse, just an explanation of why the numbers look a little bit off in ninth grade. And then again, you can see for all students, if you look at that not meeting, you can see beginning of year not meeting to middle of year. So in some places we made a little bit of headway, grade 2, grade 3, somewhat flat. Grade 4, we went the opposite direction. So we need to take a look, a very deep look at that, which is exactly what's going on now, frankly, in terms of the mid-year data cycles. Grade 5 is flat. Grade 6 made some progress. And again, you can see grade 7 and grade 8, 70% of the kids had tested at the time when we ran the data, and 50% of the kids in 8th grade. So there were still some kids that needed to test. So take those results with a grain of salt. And I certainly can update those and send them to the committee so that you have the completed results. The kids are all finished or will be finished by tomorrow. But again, we didn't want to wait a month because of the actual evaluation cycle this year. So I hope that makes sense.
It does.
And then math. Again, you can see we have some major worries in math regarding just the low percentages of kids meeting the grade level standards at this point of the year. You can just see that the numbers are very low, just over a third in some cases. And then you see the difference column in terms of the progress that was made from beginning to middle. And when we talk about budget later, Matt and I are still trying to find a way to get both of those interventionists in. I don't want to mix apples and oranges, but just kind of keep this slide in mind when we're shifting to the budget conversation in a couple of minutes. And then similarly, with those students not meeting, you can still see double digits of kids in most grades and very little movement in terms of being able to get the students where they need to be, and at least out of that and kind of into that partially meeting. With that being said, you can see in math, there's a lot of kids sitting there. About half of our students are in that partially meeting category, which is going to take a lot of work to, particularly in this climate, to get them out and to get them where they need to be. But I hope the committee knows that it is important for you to share with the community the good, the bad, and the ugly in terms of where we are. I think we've made a tremendous amount of progress, and we've done a lot of work. And I think that, this really captures the work of our team. And by team, I mean the leadership team. I mean the teachers in the classrooms, our teacher support staff, and frankly, everybody that's helped keep these buildings open, from custodians to nursing to all of our athletics and everybody in between.
Here, here. Erin, do you want to start this discussion?
Sure. What I would like to know, the consensus of the committee. Do you want me to share a Google Doc? It would give you guys time to read through, review, and then it would just be a way to compile any thoughts that come out of what you're seeing from Jason, and then I could share it with him. Or is there another way that you would like to share that? I think fairly after tonight's presentation, then giving you some time, like the next week or so, to go through his evidence that he presented. If there are any questions, then I would just meet up with Jason again after that. But I guess I'd like to know the consensus of the committee on that.
So Erin, did we do a Google Doc or a Google form? Seems to me we just did a pretty simple Google form where we could put some stuff in, but it lets you add it pretty well. And
yeah, it would probably be a form. I'm just saying,
yeah,
a form or a doc to compile it to me, and then I would share with him in another meeting with him.
You actually have to share it with the public as well. Part of the video. Just the highlights. Is everybody good with that, or anybody?
Yeah, that's how we did it last. Yeah, it just makes it easy. You can do it on your own time.
This isn't for the rating, Jane. This is just for, we'd like to see more evidence on this piece, end of year or.
Or more of a focus or more.
Right.
Yeah, we still have to share that though. If we do any kind of feedback to the superintendent, we have to share it to the public. So it doesn't have to be like, it's not a score. It's not a, you got a 3 or a 5 but just that whole,
So I'll put a very brief one together and, leave room for comments, and maybe you'll have some, maybe not. I think there's a lot of good information here.
Yeah.
I would like to add, Jason always goes above and beyond. When we met last week, he had it done, but it wasn't done. He has kept adding to it. Just pointing out, what the evidence is focused to. It's very easy to process, in my opinion. So I appreciate your effort, Jason, in organizing this for us.
Oh, sure.
and your guidance, Aaron. I appreciate not having a binder.
Oh, that's coming.
We'll have it later. We'll have it later. I know. But this is the busy season, so I appreciate it now. So it's a lot of hard work on both of your part. So I appreciate the work that went into this.
Yeah, Aaron was great and really helpful, and had to sit with me for 90 minutes to walk through this whole blessed thing. So thank you, Aaron.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next, we have a facilities use form in your packet this evening from the Board of Health, and what they are looking to do is run a clinic for COVID vaccination for 75-plus-year-olds on February 19th, which is a week from tomorrow. As you know, school is not in session, so there'll be nobody, there'll be no one in the building, and so there shouldn't be any issues with that. They're looking for support from the school committee in this area, and they have been an excellent partner, by the way, as we've worked through all of this craziness the past 11 months. So big shout out to Colleen and the Board of Health in Blackstone, and also Millville. They've been incredibly helpful.
Jason, they want the gym and the cafeteria?
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
You got a lot of 75-year-olds in the area? That's a lot of space.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're going to set it all up, but I know that they've done other clinics, and they've been doing them regionally. The last one I think was in Mendon Upton. Karen Young has been volunteering to do the vaccinations, which has been awesome. So I love that the schools have even been able to help with that, which is really cool. My sense is it's like our turn to host, I think, if that makes sense. So
I'll entertain a motion to approve the facility usage.
So moved.
Moved by Aaron. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jack. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Perfect.
And if I can be 75, I'll be at the door trying to get mine.
You just have to find someone that is 75 and bring them.
How does that help me?
As of today, if you assist someone to a vaccination that is age 75 or older,
you get yours too?
Yes.
Anybody? Any takers?
So I think this is interesting to me. So if we set up like a help your senior, all of our teachers could assist 75-year-old seniors, and then we'd kill two birds with one stone.
I would watch the use of the terminology kill, but other than that, I like the idea.
I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of teachers in our district that would be willing to carpool with their local elderly folk to get this done.
I'll be happy to give anyone a ride. I'm putting it out there. But no,
Same.
Tammy, I think that's a great idea. I mean, if that's the case, I don't know, maybe we can get more information about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was sort of going to make a joke because I've heard at a lot of other, not necessarily Massachusetts, but in a lot of Rhode Island vaccine sites, that at the end of the night, they have some extra, and people have been like calling their relatives. Like my goal here is to get as many teachers vaccinated as possible as soon as possible, so that their comfort level can increase and safety level increase. So however we do this, I'm not even kidding. Like, who's running this clinic? Who's finding the 75-year-olds? I'll call Colleen tomorrow and get some deets.
Karen must have an in.
Well, it's Blackstone, yeah.
Who does?
Call Colleen. She likes us.
Colleen.
Everybody likes us.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
Along those same lines, that was actually a beautiful segue. Thank
That
you.
was a beautiful segue.
I am asking this evening for authorization from the school committee to enter into formal conversations with Unit A about removing at some point the hybrid model and limiting our learning plans to full in-person or full remote for the remainder of the school year. I certainly don't know when that time will be, but we would like to start formal conversations with the union around that and start surveying, frankly, the community, our families, and asking, from their perspective, particularly grades 4 through 12 and our hybrid families, 4 through 12, what conditions would they need set for them to feel comfortable sending their kids back full time, and starting that really important work with our teachers to say, what conditions do you need set so that we can remove the hybrid model. I think everybody would agree that folks are doing it the best they can, but it's just not ideal. It's just not. Any way you slice it, I see it as an educator and as a dad. And I have a kid in it. It's not ideal. So we've got to start planning to back that model out.
Okay.
So we are very much looking for authorization to do that. I also mentioned before that the Department of Education released new guidance on transportation to be able to increase the number of students on buses. I have not read it yet. We just got it late this afternoon. We had a call with the commissioner. Matt and I were both on it, and he addressed that. That with the recent studies that have come out, how to keep transportation safe and put more kids on a bus, frankly. I will also mention, I don't typically do this, but I will mention it by name, Hanover Public Schools, they're coming back 100%. So they figured it out, they worked it out, they're all there, and they're starting in the next couple of weeks. So we're, we are looking closely at seeing how they are doing that, and the teachers are on board. So there's still all the safety precautions. I think they've adjusted their separation of student desks some. I'm not sure what all the provisions are that they've put in place. I do agree with Tammy in terms of, very much so in terms of wanting people to feel safe and comfortable to do that. So I do think that this would be the first step to starting those formal discussions.
So I will entertain a motion to start those discussions and allow the discussion of a MOA or return to in-person.
So moved.
Moved by Aaron. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tammy. Anybody else want to add to Jason's comments? Sooner the better, in my opinion. Go ahead, Tammy.
What I heard Jason say, though, was to move, get rid of hybrid. I would like to say that I'm strongly in favor in person. So I all distance would, I don't know if that's the way I would love to see it go, but I agree that hybrid is hard.
Anyone else have any comments? All those in favor of authorizing the administration to have open discussion with the different unions, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
Thank you so much.
And if it works, Jason, I'd like to be included as I was the last time, but if it doesn't, schedule doesn't work, I'm okay there too.
Sure, absolutely. We're happy to do that. So the next item is an update on FY22. And so I'm going to kick this over to Matt in a minute, but I think just an important piece to highlight here. We have spent a significant amount of time since our last workshop thinking about and talking about how do we preserve the return and recovery work? How do we preserve the core district improvement work that we're trying to do with our district strategy, but also create something that's fiscally sound and viable for our two towns? I do want to note that I and Matt certainly understand that the committee has not agreed to the reductions to the needs-based budget items that are listed here. We can answer any questions and speak to these. We've thought very creatively about how can we try to kind of get two bites of the apple and do some of this work with existing staffing and schedules. But we also know that time is of the essence and important. And so after the joint meeting, we have had discussions with the town administrator and the finance subcommittee chair from Millville we had yesterday. And today we met with the interim town administrator, the accountant, and the chair of the Board of Selectmen in Blackstone. We were very clear in both cases that, this is where things are now, that there's still another, there's tonight's meeting, there's another budget workshop on February 23rd, and that we need to talk through these reductions to the needs-based budget with the school committee, but that we are trying our hardest to be as collaborative as we can with the communities to ensure that we put forward the best budget possible for our children and for our towns. So with that, Matt, do you want to just give a couple of quick highlights to, there you are, a couple of quick highlights to the committee in terms of just what some of the big things are that have changed? And then we can maybe answer questions.
Sure. So I think the first page that you have really summarizes a lot of what was pared down with respect to what we were hoping to do from a return and recovery perspective. But as Jason mentioned, please don't think that this means that all of these services referenced are not going to be delivered to the students or their needs won't be met. I mean, we were creative with reorganizing some of the funding and reallocating where things are going. For example, you can see the reduction for the teacher of the deaf. We are considering possibly not hiring that position, which I believe is going to be spoken about in a little bit. But money was put aside for contracted services with respect to that need. So we're trying to really be as creative as we could and do the most we could with the money that we were trying to get from the towns. If you look at the spreadsheet that you have, you'll see that we were able to lower. So the first two lines at the top are expenses that are out of our control. You have the school choice sending tuition and the charter school sending tuition. The all other is the space where we were working on reducing, and we were able to get that down to the 25,975,000 that you see there. That is a total percentage increase of only 2.73% to the overall budget. We did adjust, or I should say we're recommending adjustments to the use of circuit breaker. That use of funds was lowered a little bit. We also have there the COVID-19 funding. You can see that that's set at $270,000. That is the ESSER 2 money that we just were notified about. And to be clear, that is half of the funds that we anticipate receiving. Jason and I have spoken at length, and we want to make sure that our return and recovery plan spans the 2 years, because we know that these kids are coming in with social, emotional, and learning gaps. And in order to bridge those gaps, it's probably going to take more than just this upcoming year. And also, there is still the use of E&D. You'll notice that some of the funds that were cut were facilities work. Those were just meant to be some very initial facilities activities. We are putting together our capital planning subcommittee, and that will really be looking at some of the larger scale work. But I wanted to point out that I always reference not using E&D for recurring costs, and I typically try to target facilities or capital expenses with E&D. That is not the case with that $140,000, but what we can say is that money is being put towards supporting this 2-year return and recovery plan. So while it's not capital, it's not a recurring cost. We do anticipate that this will either be a one-time or possibly just a 2-year expense where we may spend some E&D on this process. But the purpose was really to offset the cost to the towns.
But Matt, 50 of that is still to invest in.
50 of it is still the OPEB, correct? Yes. Yes, it absolutely is. So if you scroll down, you'll see that that leaves the total remaining after the adjustments we made at about 13.1 million after our state aid and our grants and the district kicking in revenues from classroom rental and fee collection. And we are able to bring the assessments to the numbers that you see on the side. And just the short summary of it is, not including the capital, we were able to get the percentage of increase for Blackstone to be a 3.7% increase, and for Millville, a 1.35% increase. And as Jason and I discussed with the group that we met with today in Blackstone, Blackstone's MLC increased by over $170,000. So a tremendous portion of this increase is contributed to the minimum local contribution, which is set by the state.
It's important to note too that when we were meeting with the Blackstone team today, they did share that they are very concerned about their increase. They right now are facing a $700,000 deficit and trying to close next year's budget gap. So they are super concerned about the 3.8. I did share with them that the committee is very concerned about, obviously first and foremost doing the work that we need to do, but also that, it was very important to our school committee that we put forward a budget that, is sustainable.
Matt, what are the two now? One says 3.87 and one says 3.7, and what are the two? What is the first?
So the difference that you see, one does not have capital expenses included in the percentage.
So that first one is what it is with capital.
With capital, correct. So what you'll see is the percentage increase over 21 is actually higher when you include the capital for Blackstone. That's because next year is the first payment where there'll be a principal pay down payment for the windows and boiler project. Mm-hmm. And if you actually, Millville's capital assessment for next year, because we haven't committed to long-term funding for the boiler project at Millville, their capital costs actually decreased. So when you incorporate Millville's capital costs, their overall increase is only 1%.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know if anyone had any questions regarding.
Questions or thoughts, or I know we have another workshop coming up on the 23rd.
Yeah, on the 23rd, so.
We certainly can process them then too, if the people have, more time, they want to sit with it. And
Can you, for the 23rd, can you paint us a picture of what staffing will look like with because I know that, we're potentially taking away the teacher of the deaf, but contracting, but there's so who will have a reading specialist, who will have a
Absolutely.
What's going to be shared between or whatever.
You know what we can do, Jane, if you think this will be helpful, we can actually lay out a staffing plan for every building, and we can just kind of a snapshot. Does that work?
Yeah, because, as you know, I am a proponent of the social worker. I know it's not as important as everything else on that list, but I think with what we're going to see when we get people back, I don't know, but so seeing how we divide and conquer, I guess, would be important to me to see that.
Yeah, so we can do that.
Are we going to go through the line item at that meeting, Jane?
It has never been my intention to do that. Is that people's desire?
No.
Is that when we go on the glue stick hunt?
Yeah, that's what I
dread. I don't think it serves us. I think it serves us better to talk, how the picture looks and who's in front of the kids and what enrichment can we provide them and academics can we provide them. And I don't think
I agree. I was just curious.
Counting paper and paper clips and glue stick.
But we did talk about getting a copy to everyone, right?
Yeah. On the committee, right?
Yes. Well, then that usually gets presented with our public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean presented?
That line by line is usually available to the public.
It's available at any point if anybody requests it. We don't put it in our packet.
Well, we used to put it out in binders to public places that people like libraries and.
Yeah, we haven't done that in a while.
We never sent it to the towns.
Nope. If they request, many of them request it.
But I mean, I didn't think that we.
No.
So not necessarily the
binders
line by lines. Sorry, I was saying not necessarily line by line, but the overall budget with all of the function codes and funding lines has been presented and can be. And that's typically a part of the budget book that I prepare.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, Jason, did Blackstone elaborate at all? Just expressed concern.
No, they were just expressing concern at this point, but I think they're still early in their process too, I think. I mean, that was the sense I got. Matt, did you get the same sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lauren, their assistant accountant with Lauren Taylor, she was there and said there is definitely a lot of things that they still need to look at to make sure that they're not in a deficit. She was clear about that.
Still work to do, I think, on everybody's end.
Yeah. Everyone's still working.
Yeah.
Well, if we take as long as the state took, we'll present our budget next February.
On to the next topic.
All right. We have two job descriptions that we need approved this evening. One is for the teacher of the deaf, and the other is for the board certified behavioral analyst, or also known BCBA. These are for our learner services department.
So Jill, can you elaborate for me is there a one BCBA? Is there people can have that as a credential? Help me understand what that is.
Yeah, it's a certification, board certified behavior analyst. We currently have one. We had one in the district. We just reposted to refill that position, but we wanted to update the job description. So it is a position that you have to be certified, to do that. It is part of the teacher's contract. And as our district, we have one right now.
But that's not somebody who then is in a class, somebody who works through.
Correct. They don't teach students, but they do all the, functional behavioral assessments, the behavior plans. They supervise our ABA paraprofessionals. They're involved with students who have significant behavioral issues, our students on the autism spectrum. They support all of those things.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions on either of these job descriptions?
I guess just based on the last conversation about the teacher of the deaf, are we still posting for this, or is it just a reduced position?
So,
This is the job description to approve even having it as this job, but go ahead, Jill, sorry.
I think for the teacher of the deaf, we did look through everything and are probably going to be looking at contracted services for one more year. So we'd still like to have the job description approved for the future if this happens to come up. But, we did try to look through everything again. And to be very honest with you, this is an extremely difficult position to fill. We haven't had any candidates apply to that position right now. But we are hopeful. I mean, we are looking to move forward with contracted services next year. But again, with the job description, because our needs change all the time.
Anyone else?
Jill, does this teacher of the deaf, hard of hearing, is that a separate special education certification? Is it?
It's a separate certification. It's actually, you have to be the teacher. It's teacher of the deaf. Teacher of hearing impaired. It is a certification. It's separate certification from special ed.
So do they yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's a totally separate certification training. Mm-hmm.
So they have to know sign?
I would assume.
Just wondering.
Yeah, totally separate.
I'm sure they're well sought after.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right. Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2 job descriptions as posted.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by somebody just said that. I'm picking Tammy. Seconded by Tammy. It wasn't Tammy. Aaron, was it you?
No, but I will.
Okay, thank you.
I was one of them.
Oh, okay, Sarah. So there you go. Tara and Sarah. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, you're all set.
Great. Thanks, folks. That ends my report, but I do want to just, as we jump into the business office report, share, we were a little concerned this may happen. The excess and deficiency numbers have not come back certain. We weren't sure. They're still working on the town side. But Matt's been very close.
So I just want to reassure people and to let everybody know.
Tammy, you're making noise.
Around Central Lake.
Oh, the Tammy.
Okay.
So we don't have the E&D number to bring forward to the committee this evening, but as soon as we do, we will certainly make sure to do that. Matt, do you want to walk us through the rest of the business office report, please?
Certainly. So first on my agenda, we have a request to dispose of some surplus. You have in your package an email request that we received. Maureen Gonzalez, our Director of Food Services, is asking to be able to dispose of 2 large warmers that are broken. They essentially serve as, well, placeholders right now. They have a value of nothing. And they are currently in the high school storage room, just taking up space that is needed, particularly since our food service department has been working like crazy to ensure that we have been providing meals for our families. I believe Jason referenced the number earlier today. To date, I believe our food service department has served over 290,000 meals during this pandemic. And they need a little bit of extra space to keep their supplies. So they are asking for permission to dispose of these warmers.
Motion to approve removal of surplus.
So moved.
Moved by Tammy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Tara. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention. All right. Warmers on the back burner.
Excellent. Thank you. Maureen will be very pleased.
Can we get money for like scrap metal or something?
I don't believe so, but I will check
Just
in.
wondering.
Next on my agenda is the transportation MOA. As you recall, last year we came to a memorandum of agreement with Telstones. That Telstones was really we owe them thanks for the work that they did with us on that agreement. And I will say that once again, while this is a very different agreement, it was a pleasure to work with Neil. They were very open to giving us some discounted rates on our transportation, particularly since we technically are contracted with them from the start of the school year to the end of the school year. And we had those 10 days in the beginning of the school year where we did not have any transportation. Whereas last year we paid about 60 some odd % for non-transport days. This year we paid absolutely nothing for those first 10 days, which is a significant help for us in the budget. And in order to support the transportation process to be maintained and have Neil be able to keep his employees on board, we came up with a sliding scale for a change in percentages of payment for as we encountered any non-transport days. Quite frankly, I'm hoping that we don't really get to the point where we're really considering lowering the rate significantly, but you can see the schedule in this memorandum of agreement. It essentially says after those initial 10 days that we were given no price for, the next 10 non-transport days, we would pay 100% of the amount. If it goes up to 25 non-transport days, the district would pay 90% of days 11 through 25. And in the event that there are up to 40 non-transport days, we would pay 87.5% of days 11, of days 26 through 40. And then we would agree to pay 100% of the remainder of his contract for any additional days. Mathematically, I believe I shared this with Jason. It was so long ago now, I'm not sure. Mathematically, the district was benefiting from this agreement in the sense that the 0% payment that we made on the first 10 days of transportation more than offset any of the small percentages that we're going to see for the non-transport days. And the hope is we're not going to see any anymore.
I will entertain you're just looking, you want to authorization to sign this. Is that what you're looking for?
Correct. I would like
already entered into it.
Yep. I would like to enter into this memorandum of agreement with Telstones, quite frankly, so that we can pay them.
Yeah. So authorization to sign. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Sarah. Is there a second?
Second.
Tammy, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. The red sheets.
Next up is the revenue report. There is, if you take a look at the revenues, everything seems to be coming in as scheduled. We'll say our Chapter 70 money has been coming in as expected, as have been our title grants. And again, as always, a shout out to the towns. Our assessments have been coming in. You can see as we're about 3/5 of the way through the year right now, we've collected about 3/5 of our assessments. There's really nothing that stands out on the revenue sheet. Also worth mentioning is just that we still continue to bring in that supplemental revenue for the COVID funding, and that's going to play a big picture in our overall budget picture when we talk about our expenses. Are there any questions about the revenue? Okay. That would bring us to the total expenditure report. Once again, for anyone that is new to this report, possibly joining us for the first time, this report is broken into the two pieces. We have our general fund expenditure review on one page, and we have grant funds and COVID funds review on the second page. So beginning with the general fund review, essentially we are in the same place that we were the last time we reviewed this report. Things are going smoothly. We are okay with our spending. It's very clear that there are areas that we've discussed before, our regular classroom teachers and special education classroom teacher buckets, that there seem to be large amounts of remaining funds. But as I mentioned, when we look at the COVID expenses that are on the second sheet, our COVID expenses end up exceeding what it is that we're expecting the grant money to be able to fund. So we're in a place where we are seeing some savings in the general fund because of the decisions we made at the beginning of the year when we were trying to save money when we thought that the state revenue was going to be at a tremendous shortfall. But we are still seeing very much heightened expenses from the COVID process that we're following. You can see that we're about almost $400,000 in the red on our COVID spending. At the bottom of the second page, you can see that while it shows that we are having some savings in our general fund expenditures, it evens out and we're in a decent place where approximately 250,000, 280,000 under budget right now when we're factoring in everything. I want to give everyone just an opportunity to take a look at them. I know sometimes you could take a second. Are there any questions regarding the expenditure review? Then with that, you have submitted the personnel update. And I will move into my facilities report, which I seem to have misplaced on my, where did that go? There were a lot of papers this evening.
There were.
There we go. So
There was no binder.
For the facilities update, there was nothing major going on, but I did want to start updating the committee on just some of the things that have been happening. We did have an issue at the complex where, interestingly, we found this out because at night the custodian was cleaning and noticed that the toilet water was really warm. there was a mixing valve that was coming off of the hot water heater, and there was some problem. There was a cracked valve, and it was allowing some diversion of the hot water. We did have that replaced, and that repair was done immediately. Something that we are looking at, but we will be bringing to the capital committee. We've been noticing that we tried to do some mop and glow repairs on the stages at the complex. Jenny was very creative in thinking that that might fix the problem. But unfortunately, we're really going to need to resurface those stages. It has been a number of years. They're not extreme expenses. I believe the smaller stage is about $1,500 to $1,600, and the larger stage is about $2,600. But again, as we start tackling these priorities of the capital plan, I'll bring this to the capital planning committee. At Millville, we did have to do some work on 2 of the exterior doors. The hinges were in bad shape and they broke off. So again, these are the types of things that we're hoping the capital planning committee is going to start to have a more long-term comprehensive plan for taking care of these maintenance issues, as well as some of the bigger projects. And again, we also are, we're looking at replacing or fixing the handicapped ramp in the back of the high school. Quite frankly, I have to follow up on where that repair stands. I know that we had a company that came to look at it on Monday, but I need to get some pricing first before we have the work done. And I have 2 members of this committee who have already asked to be part of our capital planning subcommittee. So thank you very much to Kerry and to Erin. And I'm going to be reaching out to see if there are other members that we may need to involve possibly from the town. Or
I would encourage us, and I'm happy to write a letter like we did for the RAC, but to get a member from each board of selectmen and from each capital committee in the town. You know, they each have capital committees. So
I'm very glad that you referenced that, Jane. I was a bit hesitant to actually say, I would really like to invite the members from the town, whether it's the, as you said, the board of selectmen, their finance or their capital planning committee. I think that this type of a group needs to be comprised of everyone involved, because it's really everyone's investments that we're.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as we did, this is our next big push. So if there is another, you know, if there are other members who have interest, that's fine too. But I also think we should do, you know, do a parent or townspeople, or, you know, this is
it's a big,
on the horizon. So
yeah, it's a big thing, and there will be a lot of work to be done through this capital planning subcommittee.
So if anyone knows,
we may need some substitute members.
Yeah, there you go.
So
but
Matt,
I will send a letter to the boards.
Matt, is this different from the facilities subcommittee? Is that 2 different things?
Not really.
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that's the one that I signed up for with when we did the reorg.
I did too.
Congratulations. You guys are also on the capital planning subcommittee.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought so.
I wanted to be a part of that, so thank you.
Okay. And Tara too.
Yep.
All right. Perfect.
That's great.
4, perfect. Okay. And
that
again, if people hear of family parents, I mean, we can, you know, send a general kind of announcement around that we're looking for people, but I will send a letter to the board of selectmen and ask them to select somebody from the board and their capital planning committees.
I think that's great. Thank you for that, Jane.
Yeah.
If community members want to join that effort, they should contact you, Matt.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone who is interested can contact me. And that is the end of my facilities report, unless there are questions. Or are there any questions?
Aaron has one.
I can't see everyone on the screen,
no, that's
so I
okay.
apologize.
Just an update on the Millville boiler. Is that done? Are we circling the building now, or is there still something going on over there?
The boiler project is complete. We are just tying out some of the financing pieces, and there's some groundwork up top that needs to be completed, more aesthetics than anything. But the boilers are working, and I would have to confirm the commissioning date with the OPM. But everything is working in Millville. They haven't been having problems with the heat. The boiler is up and running. We have a propane contract. There have been propane deliveries. The next piece of that is we are anticipating there might need to be a little bit of additional work done on the pneumatic systems that are inside with respect to the thermostats. But as of now, the heat is on and there have been limited to no complaints and everything is functioning.
Great. Is the ground, so is the site cleaned up, or was it still?
The site's for the most part cleaned up, and we need to just tie some things up, and then I think hopefully we'll have that area in, where it's supposed to be.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt.
They are driving around the building.
They are.
Yeah, are they going around? Yes. Yeah.
I believe they are, yeah.
They are. Yeah.
So I
think
apologize. There is, yeah.
They're dropping off and they're going all the way around.
Yeah, so the site is cleaned up. There is just still a little site work that needs to be done, as I mentioned, aesthetically. So I'm not sure if there's going to need to be any kind of equipment for seating or anything of that nature, but I'll let the committee know if there's going to be any equipment coming back in.
All right, thank you. Any school committee members have anything they would like to bring to the attention of the group or the community? Okay, our upcoming meetings are our budget workshop meeting on February 23rd at 5 o'clock. And then our public hearing, March 11th at 6 at the Hartnett Middle School. Again, we'll be back to being in person with people coming to chat amongst us, we hope. At this point, I will entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of MGL Chapter 30A to conduct strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, and we will not return. We will adjourn from executive session, not to return to the open meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Tammy, seconded by Jack. Karen?
Yep.
Yes. Aaron? Aaron? Okay. Sarah?
Yes.
Tammy?
Yes.
Jack?
Yes.
Tara?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yeah.
All right, thank you all very much. Jesse, if you wouldn't mind turning over.